Hello, everybody. Have you ever looked at popular writing advice and said to yourself, absolutely not? That's what we're talking about today. I'm breaking down the 10 pieces of popular writing and publishing advice that just didn't work for me. This topic was requested by one of my newsletter subscribers, Demi. If you'd like to request topics in the future, you gotta subscribe to my newsletter. It's linked below. Please note, just because this advice didn't work for me doesn't mean it's all bad advice. In fact, some of this advice is pretty solid. It just didn't work for me due to my specific quirks and lifestyle. And some of this advice is shitty either way you slice it. The point is, I'm going through each piece of advice and explaining why it didn't work for me and why it may or may not work for you. We're all different people. That's the beauty of this industry. It isn't one size fits all. Do any of these tips work for you? Or are you like me? Let me know in the comments below. Before we get started, I am currently hosting a fundraiser for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, a nonprofit organization committed to ending breast cancer. For the entire month, you can donate to BCRF using the link in the description below. Even if it's just $1, every little bit helps. For each funding benchmark we reach, one donor will receive a special bookish gift as a thank you for their support. And there are 50 gifts up for grabs. Before I reveal the current benchmark, let's start with a factoid. What's the deal with the genetic inheritance of breast cancer? Inherited breast cancer is caused by a genetic mutation that is passed down from mother to daughter and so on. These genetic mutations don't always lead to cancer, but they are associated with an increased risk. It's estimated that 10 to 15% of all breast cancer is inherited, but this number may be higher. Usually people with inherited breast cancer tend to develop it at a younger age, and it tends to be more aggressive. Probably the most famous example is the BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations. This mutation often causes a decrease in the BRCA protein, which hinders your cell's ability to repair itself. But it's not all bad news here. Patients with the BRCA mutation may respond better to treatment. If you have a family history of breast cancer, it may be worth doing some genetic screening. Preventative measures can be taken, and starting mammograms at an earlier age is a great option. This is where your money is going towards if you donate to the BCRF fundraiser. This is our current benchmark, and these are the number of gifts currently up for grabs. Some of the gifts you could receive include the debut dark fantasy novel Ashes by Iona Whalen. This book was my #1 read of 2020. It actually made me cry, which doesn't happen ever. Another gift up for grabs is the digital arc of the debut epic romantic fantasy novel The Prince of Tirana by Haley Turner. I had the pleasure of reading it already, and if you don't fall in love with Darren, you are dead inside. Even better, both of these authors will be joining me at my live stream next week, so if you want to chat with us live, you gotta join. We're awesome, we're fun, we're a little bit unhinged, but that's why you love us. Now I am breaking down the 10 pieces of writing and publishing advice that, while popular, didn't work for me. Are you ready, Butters? Are you ready? Let's get to it. Number 1, don't edit as you go. It's highly recommended that writers do not edit while writing the first draft, which makes perfect sense. Typically, if writers edit while they're writing the first draft, they get caught in this never-ending rewrite loop, and they never finish the book. However, there's a small subset of writers who will be frozen in place if they're not able to edit mid-draft. I'm one of those writers. Blame it on my need for control, blame it on the neurodivergence, blame it on the fact that I'm a picky bitch. If I can't clean things up throughout my first draft, that draft is never getting finished. My typical cycle is to spend a day writing without reading or editing any of it. The next day, I read over what I'd written, and I make short, easy edits. If something's too complicated to fix, I highlight it and save it for later. Then I continue drafting, and the process repeats itself. Number 2, rapid release is the way to go. The rapid release method is often proclaimed as the #1 option for indie writers. Rapid release is exactly what it sounds like. It means you release books very quickly, often multiple books a year. Some rapid release authors release as many as 20 books a year. This method works for a lot of writers for obvious reasons. It's all about quantity. The more books you have out, the greater opportunity you have for sales. However, from my research, it does seem that a lot of rapid release novels appeal to serial readers. These are readers who gobble up as much content within a particular genre as they can, regardless of who wrote it. If that's your goal, knock yourself out. But my goal was to create a vibrant and loyal readership. Additionally, rapid release also tends to focus on quantity over quality, which is something I'm just not comfortable with. Number 3, create a routine. Creating a routine is pivotal for a vast majority of writers. A writing routine is essentially where you create a daily or weekly routine where you're expected to write a certain number of words or write for a certain amount of time on each day or within that week. I highly recommend doing this. If I could, I would. However, due to the unique nature of my lifestyle, I can't. Not only am I a full-time writer, I am also a caregiver. My partner is disabled and suffers from a chronic pain condition known as CRPS. CRPS is extremely unpredictable, which makes maintaining a routine pretty much impossible. Thus, I have to plan my schedule on a week-by-week basis and work it around his current health status. Thus, creating a consistent writing routine for me would always result in failure. Instead, I assess how Cliff is doing and then plan my week around that. I'll locate the days where he doesn't have doctor appointments or he's mostly independent, and those will be my writing days. If you're in a similar situation, this might work for you, but if you're like most writers, creating a writing routine is the superior option. Number 4, your workspace shouldn't be the same as your resting space. I understand the reasoning for this. If you work in the same place as you rest, then when you're resting, you'll probably start thinking about working. For a lot of people, this is valid, and thus writing in an office makes sense. But I'm not a lot of people. I'm a cyborg bitch. Ultimately, the more comfortable I am, the easier it is for me to write. And what's the most comfortable place in my house? My king-size bed. When I'm writing in my studio or outside or even on my couch, I'm not as productive because all I can focus on are my sensory issues. But when I'm in bed, the words flow, I'm calm, and my ass is cradled by comfortable goodness. Has it affected the way I sleep? Fuck if I know. My sleep patterns were messed up long before I became a writer. Number 5, channel your muse. For a while, there was a popular piece of writing advice floating around that encouraged writers to see their talent and inspiration as a gift from their muse. If they had writer's block, blame it on the muse. If the book sucked, blame it on the muse. The idea was essentially to use this muse as a way to alleviate pressure. They're not in control, some otherworldly entity is. While I can see the benefit of this mindset, there isn't a single universe where this would work for me. First of all, I'm a control freak. I need to feel in control in order to be productive. I also feel that passing off mistakes as the fault of a muse relinquishes accountability, and writers should be accountable. We're creating art for an impressionable audience. We should feel a duty to our readers. Basically, being in the driver's seat is a comfortable place for me, and leaving the ownership in the hands of an imaginary muse isn't gonna fly. Number 6, write out of order. If you're inspired to write a scene, even if it occurs 16 chapters later, write that scene. Follow your heart. Lead with your creative mind. Listen, this advice sucks. I'm just gonna say it. I understand the intention. If you're really excited about a scene, it's very tempting to write it in full. And don't get me wrong, I sort of do an adjacent version of this. If I have dialogue or a fight scene lingering in my mind, I'll write it out in shorthand. Then I'll shove that shorthand into my outline so I can elaborate on it once I reach that chapter. But writing entire scenes out of order is a recipe for disaster. 1, because your story changes as you write. Even if you have an outline, things will change. Your story isn't set in stone. I've never followed my outline to a T. There is always something new that happens. 2, because your talent grows as you write. That means if you write chapter 16 before chapter 1, chapter 16 is probably going to be your worst chapter. And 3, your characters grow throughout the story. Your MC is going to be a different person by the time you reach that scene. Will their actions and reactions even make sense by the time you get there? With those things considered, every single time I wrote a scene out of order, I had to rewrite it. Take it from me, write it out in bullet points, and use it as a guide for later. Number 7, don't make your book available for pre-sale. This is a common piece of advice for indie authors who A, don't plan to do much marketing, B, have a smaller audience, and C, want to hit number 1 on an Amazon bestseller list. If all of these points apply to you, then not making your book available for pre-sale is a logical idea. None of these points apply to me. Well, one kinda does, but still. I'm a marketing nut. If I'm going to be releasing a book, I'm gonna do as much marketing as possible. Additionally, I'm fortunate enough to have a large audience. You know why? Because of all that marketing I did. Because of these two facets, my books have consistently hit #1 on multiple Amazon bestseller lists. Thus, there isn't much incentive for me to skip the pre-sale step. A pre-sale window simply means more orders, and I'm not gonna say no to that.
Is that right? Is that right, you cute little girl?
Number 8, the villain is always the hero of their own story. Historically speaking, plenty of villains have been the hero of their story. They see their goal as a betterment for society. And if that's the idea behind your villain, have at it. My issue is with the word always. Do all villains see themselves as the hero? Hardly. Most villains throughout history were acting on elitism, entitlement, and greed. They knew they were making choices that could hurt a great deal of people, but their goal took precedent. So claiming that all villains should see themselves as heroes is simply bad advice. Now, it may depend on your definition of the word hero. If you mean hero as in the main character, then yes, villains definitely see themselves as the MC. After all, that's how entitlement works. But if you're looking at hero based on its definition, which is more or less a courageous good guy with noble intentions, then no. Not all villains see themselves that way. Beware of writing advice that speaks in absolutes. Number 9, write every day. Have you ever noticed this advice usually comes from men? Men who have wives to handle all the childcare and household duties. And if a woman says this, they're usually either single or financially supported, or they're none of those things and their lives are in absolute shambles. Just saying, you don't have to write every day. I don't write every day. Sometimes writing advice is full of shit. And number 10, pantsing is the only way to be a real writer. Cue the angry pantsers! I want to make a note. Pantsers get mad at me all the time just because I encourage writers to consider outlining. You do realize my advice isn't law, right? You can do whatever you want. Your hands are not tied. I just don't get it. When I read advice encouraging people to pants, I don't get offended. I just think, welp, this advice isn't for me. It's not personal. Anywho, for those who don't know, pantsing means writing by the seat of your pants. You don't plan beforehand, you just kind of go with the flow. For some writers, this is the only way to go. If they can't pants a book, it's not gonna get finished. And that's fine. But I started my journey pantsing for a decade, and I never finished a single book because inevitably the same thing would happen. I'd write myself into a wall and I'd have no idea what to write next, because I didn't have a plan. That's when I finally started to implement outlining, and lo and behold, I was finally able to publish a book, and then another book, and then another book, and then another book. Then I mingled within the writing community and learned that outlining or planning in some way is the majority outlook. It's not the only practice, but it's the practice that works for most writers. Not all writers, pantsers, do what you want. Stop crying, you're scaring my dog.
Blighters, you got a smile. Look at you.
Ultimately, at least in novel format, pantsing doesn't work for me, so it's a piece of advice I usually ignore. So that's all I got for you today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I post new videos on Wednesdays, and if you want to be alerted as soon as I upload, ring that bell. Shut Up and Write the Book is available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook. It's available at all major retailers, so if you need a step-by-step guide to writing your novel from plan to print, definitely check it out. If dark fantasy romance is more your vibe, check out The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister. They are also available at all major retailers, and you want to get on it soon before The Savior's Army comes out. And be sure to follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and BookBub, and of course you can tweet me at Jenna Moreci. Bye!
This is Wimbledon. If you haven't subscribed to Jenna's channel, then by all means, go for it. The people will love you for it. Go on, press the button. Ding that bell. See you soon.